So I read some books in April and I would love to talk about them with you. I know this is kind of like later because we're already in the middle of May, but I've just been so busy and I was just on a trip, so I haven't really had time to make this video, but I was like, I need to just sit down and do it and talk about the books I read in April. We have some good ones, we have some not so great ones, we have definitely a mix of genres again, and I'm just really excited to talk about the books I read, so let's get into it. Okay, so we're actually starting off on not the best of notes. We're starting off with a DNF, which is Shield of Sparrows. Now, I was really excited to read this book. It was actually on my 26 for 2026, and I was extremely excited about it. I've heard great things about it. People were raving about it. People were saying like it's the best romantasy out there right now. It's such a good book. So I remember getting it on my Libby and trying to read it. And there were a few things that didn't hit the mark for me, unfortunately. I think the number one thing was just the pacing of the story. I remember like reading the first couple chapters and be like, okay, we're story building. Like I'm kind of into it. I'm getting there. And then it just didn't progress as fast as I would have liked it to, and I felt kind of bored and like I didn't care that much because the pacing was slow. There was also lots of descriptions of things, lots of over necessary descriptions, and I was just like, I don't need two paragraphs to describe something. Like I just wanted it a little bit quicker. I felt like, again, like the pacing, the descriptions, a little too much for me. The plot was kind of interesting. Like I was intrigued about the premise, but then when I actually read the book, I was like caring less and less about the plot. Like I just didn't care about her or what was going on with her, and that like her sister was supposed to marry the person, and then it ended up being her that they picked, and it just, I didn't care enough, and I was losing interest. And I don't know if that was a writing issue, but I'm assuming it was that. The main character, the MMC, the Guardian, I think his name was, he was cool. He was interesting. I think if I was going to finish the book, it would have only been for him and figuring out what his deal was, because I did kind of like him. But I think I just couldn't get into it. And the FMC was not, FMC? FMC. She just wasn't anything special to me, and I was just kind of bored with it. So yeah, I was skimming a lot, and yeah, I wish I could get into it more. I've heard great things from this book, but too much repetition, too much dialogue, too much, I don't know. It was just a writing issue maybe, and so I had to, unfortunately, DNF. But that's okay, because not every book is for me, and that's totally fine. But unfortunately, Shield of Sparrows was my first book of the month, and it was a DNF. Moving past the DNF, I was in not great spirits, and I was like, like, I feel like I should just like pick a book that I feel like I'm gonna like, which is normally romance. And so I picked up A Little Buzzed, and this was like on my radar for anticipated reads because it just seemed like a really great premise of a book. The main plot is there's a female main character, and she works for an adult accessory company, and there is a new hire who is the MMC, and he has never been in this world before. I forgot like what his previous job was, but he gets hired to do like marketing stuff, I think, and they kind of create a deal with each other to help each other out because he's inexperienced in that world, but she also has never had an intimate relationship before, so they kind of just become work friends with benefits kind of thing, but they're coworkers. And I love the idea of the plot. It was so creative. I've never read a book like that before. I feel like it was such an interesting and creative idea, and I really liked it, and that's what got me hooked. The main characters were written well. Their personalities really shined in the writing. I remember laughing a lot and understanding their quirks and their humor, which made it feel really entertaining. And I feel like sometimes it's hard as a writer to like express character individuality and kind of have the character shine through the pages, and I feel like she did that really well. Lots of dynamics explored in this book. lots of exploration themes, not only trying to figure yourself out, but how to handle past traumas and move forward, how to deal with current relationships and set boundaries, and how to plan for your future and truly go after what you want. I mean, there was like so much like discussed in this book. It was not just about like them exploring each other, but also finding their passions and their selves through individuality. And of course they have their own traumas and their own things that they're going through. So I really like that it was like, you didn't think the book was going to delve into deep themes and topics, but like it was really a lot of things that were discussed, and I really enjoyed that. And I felt like it deepens your connection with the main character when you can learn through them and see how they're dealing with that. So, yeah, I really like that. And very sex positive book, and explores different roles and expressions and different interests. And yeah, I really like that. And I think we need more books like that, because I feel like that whole taboo thing is just so like, come on. Got emotional from some parts, and I even cried during one of the scenes. Yeah, I don't really get emotional that much with books. So if I like cry and I have a physical reaction to what I'm reading, then I know it's good, and I know that like the job was done. So, the female main character was written very well, where she comes across very quirky and kind of awkward and a loner, but in a way that could be relatable. I feel like a lot of women tend to be more quirky, but also quiet, maybe more reserved, more of a homebody. And I feel like sometimes people miss the mark with writing that, and they make them too corny and cliche and very like, let's make her say all the modern phrases and slang. And it's just like comes off very disingenuine. But the writing with this was really well, and I felt like the main female character, she came across very relatable, and I was like, oh, like I can relate to that, and she seems like a very normal person. Some things I didn't like about the book: workplace environment isn't realistic. Throughout the whole book, it's like her boss and her coworkers are encouraging her to have this relationship with her coworker, and even though you're working for a company that is kind of taboo, it's very like sex positive, it just like still seems kind of not realistic for her own boss to be encouraging her to sleep with her coworker. So I think there was that. And yeah, the book emphasizes the weirdness and the lack of normalcy with their profession and company, and makes it kind of an excuse for the untraditional workplace environment. And I feel like that's also a theme where it's like, oh, we don't work for a traditional company, and it's very like not normal. So everything we do is kind of, what is that word? Like there's an excuse for how we're reacting and how we're acting in the workplace. And I don't know if I loved that. So there was that. Very heavy miscommunication trope, especially towards the end of the book. And you guys know how I feel about miscommunication. So that kind of got a little annoying, but yeah. Also, a thing for me was that I feel like the female main character was fleshed out really well, but the male main character, I feel like we didn't get a lot from him. Like we got some bits from him, but I wish he was more fleshed out and we understood, because a lot of the thing was that he wouldn't express himself with her and he wouldn't reveal things about himself. So that's kind of where the miscommunication came in. And then it got like more miscommunication later, and we never really got answers to why he reacts certain ways. And like we just got a little bit of his backstory, but I wish he was just as fleshed out, because he did seem very interesting. And yeah. Also, there was like bits and pieces where it's like they brought up like her ex situationship and why is there always a need for exes to be involved in the female main character's life. I feel like that's a common theme with romance books nowadays, where it's like, oh, the ex is still in the picture. Like, why? Like, I feel like, I don't know, this is just me, but like exes are never in my head. They're never like in my life currently. Like, I'm not in an environment where I put myself in that risk of being in that. And I know like, oh, like in this situation, her ex situationship, he was also, he like transitioned into her field of work. And so she kind of was like she was forced to face him. But I don't think that was necessary. And I feel like we need to stop writing exes being in someone's life and like that being a thing. And her parents in this were so unrealistic. Like, imagine like the worst parent you could think of. Like, if you know a friend of yours or whatever, like imagine that like times 1,000. It was just so like the way they were like belittling their own daughter and the way that they would speak to her. Not just about her profession, but like her life choices. It just felt a little overdone in my opinion. And it kind of was like, okay, like no parent would actually, like some parents are awful and I can understand that, but it was just a little excessive. And I think that was one of the things that was also a problem for me. But overall, I really, really did enjoy this book. I ended up giving it a 4-star, and yeah, I had a really great time with this. It was really fun. I think with this, you have to have an open mind and you have to kind of be cool with it and kind of go with the vibes. It was definitely like a fun, quirky little book. There was, again, like a few things that I just didn't love structurally with the plot and like just some decisions that I didn't think were necessary with the book. But overall, I had a really great time with it and I would highly recommend it if it sounds like something you're into. I wouldn't recommend this for every reader because there's just some things that are talked about in this that maybe you wouldn't want to read about, but I really liked it, and I think it was just something refreshing and new, and yeah, so A Little Buzzed. Alrighty, so the next book after A Little Buzzed was actually a book club book, and it was Silver Cloak, which is also a very, very, very popular book right now. So many people are raving about it. I don't know if it's on Book Talk, but everyone's talking about it. It's a fantasy book, and we read it for book club because it got picked. So here are my thoughts. The idea was great, and there were high expectations because I've heard amazing things. So I was really like expecting an out of this world experience with reading this book. Didn't love the writing, and it felt really slow and hard to get into. I felt like a lot of the reason was because the character names were just kind of crazy for me. I felt like I couldn't get into it because the writing was really slow, and it felt like very dragged out. And when authors choose to make the names of their characters untraditional things, which is fine. Like you can do whatever you want with your book. But I think sometimes we forget that, like, I know fantasy, sometimes they have quirkier names, but like when I have to sit there and like spell out and try to pronounce the names of everyone, it just like slows it down more. And I feel like it takes me out of the book. So I think that was one thing that was kind of annoying for me. The writing was very much show and not tell. Didn't leave much to the imagination. This book felt like a YA book. Like it felt like it was meant for that kind of audience. And halfway through, I was like, is this YA? Like I had to double check if this was for YA or if it was for adults because I was so convinced that it was meant for a younger audience. And the way that everything was like described as if that I couldn't understand what was going on. That's probably like one of those pet peeves for me in terms of writing is like the author not trusting that their audience can understand what's going on and just showing and not telling. Like, I don't need you to explain every little thing for me. I just need you to write the book kind of thing. I felt like the plot line for her being undercover and the magic seemed intriguing. The romance felt like it was an add-on. I didn't know if I loved her relationship, like her relationships in general in the books. I felt like it just felt like an add-on, like the romance was just kind of an element that they like sprinkled in there. Didn't know if that was necessary. I felt like I was really invested in the plot of her being undercover and like understanding the magic elements. There was a lot to that, but I think the writing again was just not enough to back up my interest for that, and I felt like there was just so much going on. So overall, I think it was just hard to get into, and I found myself bored for a lot of it, which, again, a writing issue. I think fantasy is really hard. It's a very difficult genre to write because you're relying on a lot of, like, made-up things in your world, and you have to trust that the reader is going to understand that and be invested in that. So I ended up giving it a 3-star, which now looking back on this, I think that was kind of generous. I probably would have given it like a 2 if I was going to rate it now, but I think I gave it a 3 because the potential was there and I did enjoy some of the elements of it, but I was not interested enough to like really sit there and read through the words. A lot of it I was skimming through. and I won't be continuing the series. But if you did love the book, like, I'm really glad and I'm happy that you liked it. But yeah, that was Silvercloak. Alrighty, so after our book club book, I wanted to get back into a dark romance. I feel like I wanted to like get back into books that I loved reading. You know, I started off with a DNF, a 4, a 3. I was like, let me try and read something that maybe would get me back into like the 4 and 5 stars. And so I ended up picking up Insatiable. And there's actually a few dark romances that have been on my want to read list for a while. And I kind of just went through like what was the highest rating of those all. And so I picked Insatiable. And yeah, I go into these usually not knowing what they're about. And so I was just like, okay, like it's a dark romance. People love it. Like, let's just read it. So, pretty much it's just about like, a college themed romance, and it's with her, I wouldn't say childhood, but like, yeah, I guess childhood. It's her best friend's brother, and kind of like that theme of it. And they grow up, and it starts off like as an innocent little romance, and he's like obsessed with her, and then they like break up, and then they go through this whole thing, and he kind of goes into the underworld and starts working for like bad people, and then they're trying to figure out their relationship, pretty much. Loved the concept of the characters and the main story and how they have a history from when they were young. I love that it was a second chance romance. It was just so great. The way that it was like built up and the second chance of it all. I love that. And I loved the elements of like us seeing the backstory and like their past and history. I feel like past and present. It was written really well. I feel like I don't really love like reading backstory, like when we go back in time, but this was written really well and I did love it. Hate miscommunication. This whole plot of this story only works because of the miscommunication. And it drives every single decision these characters make because no one knows the truth. And it is so frustrating when the whole plot and the premise of the story only works because they don't communicate properly. And yeah, and literally every decision that each person makes in this book is because they don't know the truth of things. And it's like, if you would only have told him this, or if you had only told her that, you wouldn't have been in this situation. And it just gets a little frustrating, but there was that. Love the parallel between the main character, the male character, and his father. And we see that he inherits his traits by being a psychopath, and he can't control his emotions. So the main male character, his dad, is in prison because he is a psycho, and he has this like thing where he's obsessed with his wife. So like the main male character's mom. And so he like killed all these people for her. And so he ends up in jail, but he's still obsessed with her. And then you see that there's little elements and traits of his own son in that and how he's going to handle that and not end up like his father kind of thing. And I love that. I felt like that dynamic was so interesting. Don't know if I love the friends and the side characters as much in this one. I felt like I was just not really interested. Like there's his sister, which is her friend, and then they have another friend and their couple, and then it's just like there was just a lot with the friends, and I didn't know if I loved that. I wasn't really into them as much. Love that there was tension, the back and forth. There wasn't immediate forgiveness, which I love that because it just seemed more realistic. Like the whole book is that like he thinks that she cheated on him with his brother, and he didn't know the full story of everything, and I love that he just didn't forgive her immediately, even though there was miscommunication. It felt very realistic, and also for her as well. Love that. The thing that like got me kind of like iffy was the whole stepbrother thing with her stepbrother. I was really weirded out by it. It was not a great thing to have to sit through and read. I don't know if that was necessary. I mean, in this first book, I was like, okay, maybe this will develop into something. Maybe we'll get more backstory as to why this may be necessary, but it just made me very uncomfortable. So there was that. Really dark romance coded. This definitely reminded me of like a Legacy of Gods kind of thing. Very different vibes, but definitely like felt very Legacy of Gods, which was fun because I did love that series. A lot happens in this book, and a lot of it is kind of unbelievable. So again, dark romance, I feel like it's very morally gray, but also things happen in this that you're like, there's no way this is happening in real life. So just keep that in mind. Some of it's just more like entertainment value and to like keep the stakes high. Yeah, and I just like I love the MMC in this like series. He was really good. But I just hate that like he went from this very like innocent, sweet little boy and he was very nervous about like his first crush and his first love, and then he turns into this like I wouldn't say awful, but like he just turns into this like I make all the bad decisions and like I'm a horrible person now and I work for the underworld. Like I hate that for him. Because I'm rooting for him to like be better. So, yeah, I really liked it. It was very entertaining. I gave it a 3 star because I feel like a lot of this was like setting up the scenes and like introducing the characters. So I didn't want to give it like an extremely high rating. And also I didn't get this like the full satisfaction yet of like a dark romance, but it was very good and it was like, oh, like we're setting up for something great here. So 3 star, which is good. And it was very entertaining. And then I found out it was a trilogy and I was like, okay, then I have to keep reading the series. So yeah, that was Insatiable. So after Insatiable, I kind of took a break from that world and I was like, let me read something else. And also, as you guys know, I've been reading Zodiac Academy and knowing that I've been wanting to finish it. So I was like, let me read the next book, which was Sorrow and Starlight. And yeah, I am loving the series. I'm obviously invested in it because this was the 8th book, I'm pretty sure. It's just, there's too much description and it keeps getting dragged out. Like the books keep getting longer and longer and longer. And I don't care as much. Like maybe this is just a me thing. I'm just solely invested in Darius and Tori and maybe Seth and Caleb. And everyone else is just kind of extra to me. We're getting, again, the points of views from people outside the core characters. Why? Like, I don't care about Lionel and, like, Lavina and whatever. Like, I don't care about them. Like, I don't even care about their siblings. Like, I just care about the main core people from the first couple books. And so that kind of gets annoying because I usually skim those parts. So the first half of the series is more of the romance being dragged out and the second half is more of the plot being dragged out. So I feel like for me, like you get very invested in the romance in the first half of the series and then afterward they're like, oh, let's turn now that the romance kind of has been discussed and played out. Let's go into the plot more. But I'm not invested in the plot. I'm invested in the romance. So for me, I prefer a more romance heavy plot being dragged out than the plot of it all and like what the war that they're going through and with the school and his dad and all that. Like I don't prefer that. Like I prefer the romance being dragged out way more. So yeah, it makes me appreciate the smaller moments more. And that's what I'm missing now. With like, I feel like after the 4th book, and then once we hit like 5 and 6 and beyond, I feel like it's just like I'm not invested, and I feel like I don't appreciate the smaller moments because we're not getting the fleshed out romance anymore. If that makes sense. So yeah, it's just a lot of like dragged out conversations. It's like, why is one chapter of conversation 45 pages? Like, why? I don't need that. Like, let's condense that a lot. Love the Seth and Caleb moments in this book. Again, like, there are a couple that have kind of grown on me, and they're characters that have grown on me throughout the series, so I really love that. I'm just frustrated that they don't express their emotions yet, and they still haven't, like, again, the miscommunication of it. Like, why? Why do we need that? Like, if they're, like, I get it, but it's also like, oh, they're friends, and it might ruin everything, but, like, clearly it won't. Like, it just won't. Do you see how much miscommunication trope is in these books? And it's like, why? It's so unnecessary. The ending of this book was the first book in the series that felt somewhat hopeful and like not so negative and down bad, which I was really surprised because the whole theme of this series is that every book ends horribly. So I was kind of like taken aback. I was like, oh, that's it? Like, it's somewhat hopeful? Interesting. Darius is my king. I love Darius. Darius is my number one. Love him so much. I actually cried during his chapter. If you know, you know. And oh my God, Tori in this, such a fighter, a trooper. She is like the definition of I will do anything. I will walk the ends of the earth to get my man back. And I'm so invested in them. I love them so much. Darius, like incredible. Yeah, so overall the book was okay. I gave it a 3 star. I think again, it's just a lot of plot and conversation that I don't care about and so many characters I don't care about. And it's like I wish, like, I guess sometimes when we read the chapters of other people's point of views, you get some elements of like what's going on, but like you don't. Like, I don't care about their point of views of things and how the war is going and what's going on behind the scenes. Like, I don't care. I don't care. But anyway, I'm only continuing this just to see what happens to my main couples that I love. But again, 3 star isn't bad, but yeah, Sarah and Starlight. I can't believe like I'm almost done with the series. It like I'm happy because then I can finally put it behind me. But I'm also like, this is the first series that I've read that's like a longer series, and I've really invested time into this, so it's gonna be kind of emotional for me. But yeah, that was Sorrow and Starlight. So after that, I decided to go back into The Insatiable Edge of Darkness, I think is what the series is called. So I ended up reading Ferocious, and this book was way better than the first. I had a great time with this one. Gets more personal with this book. You understand the characters more, with their like internal and emotional things. So you get to understand who the characters are more in this one, which obviously that makes it for a better book. Love the flashback scenes between Kate and Stacy. I feel like the flashbacks, again, I never read flashbacks in books. Like, I find they're so unnecessary and so like dragged down, boring. But in this series, the flashbacks make the story. They are so well written. Maybe I just love the fact that like they were this innocent, cute little couple that were in love and so like naive of the world and everything, and so hopeful for love. And it was just so, I love it. I love the flashbacks in this. They're so sweet, and it helps you understand their relationship when they're younger too, and how difficult it is for them now as adults. Like, it's just so good. Kate is such a sweetie. I love him in this. He's so, like, him being so innocent in the beginning and then turning into this like underworld monster kind of guy. Like, it was just so well written. I love him. Lots more violence in this, and definitely would 100% check trigger warnings, because this one definitely gets into some more like heavier topics of stuff. And also it made me feel uncomfortable. There's like a lot of things that are talked about in this series as a general thing that get very uncomfortable, and I would highly recommend you check trigger warnings, because especially by the second book, it gets kind of crazy. I hate Chris. Chris is her stepbrother. I hate him with a passion. Like, he is literally the worst person ever. He infuriates me. He makes me feel disgusted. And I can't even describe to you how much I don't want him, like, in this book at all. Like, he's just so unnecessary. But anyway, love Stacy and Tobias's dynamic. Tobias is Cade's dad, who is in prison. I love them. They're very father-daughter coded. He looks after her really well. They have this cute like banter, like they make fun of each other, they tease each other kind of relationship. He helps her a lot. Yeah, I love their relationship. Definitely like this one more because this book expresses more of the internal conflicts. There was a lot of trauma dumping. I feel like pick one trauma and stick with it kind of thing. And not that like people don't go through multiple traumas, but I feel like in a book, there's just a lot of trauma in this. Like, the things that she goes through with her stepbrother alone is enough. But then it's like her relationship with her parents is bad. And then she has this other stuff going on. And I can't even talk about what goes on in this book. Like, it's so bad. But yeah, too much drama dumping. I feel like there's just so much going on. It's not just with her. It's like with every character. Everyone has so much going on. And it's like a little too much for my taste. So I ended up giving this a 4-star. And yeah, I feel like at this point I was like, I'm going to keep reading because I've already read the first 2 books and I need to know what happens by the 3rd book. But I think I couldn't give it the 5-star because it was just a little too much emotionally for me. I can deal with like dark romance coded things where it's like, yeah, they're going to talk about heavy hitting things, but there's some points in it where it gets a little too real and too much. So I had to give it the 4, but I did really like it. And I was like, okay, now I definitely have to read the last one because I need to know what happens. So, Yeah, that was Ferocious. So after Ferocious, I wanted to take myself out of dark romance for a little bit and kind of that series because, like I said, it was very heavy and I was like, I need something a little more lighthearted, but something more less intense, hopefully. So I ended up reading Heart the Lover, and I had heard really great things about this. I was very excited about it. The plot seemed like something I'd never read before. And yeah, this is actually the second book. There's a book previous to this one, but I didn't read that one first. So you can read Heart the Lover without reading the book before this and understand everything. So yeah, pretty much it's about a female main character and her journey from college into her adult life, and it's her relationship between these two guys that are friends. And I would say it's like kind of love triangle-y, but yeah, it's just kind of her romance and her relationships with them and how they progress as she becomes an adult. So yeah. Yeah, I love the writing of this. The personalities really shine in this. I felt like the writing and what happens in this book feels very realistic. It feels like something that could actually happen in real life. And the writing was really well done. It made me feel very invested in the characters. She definitely trusted the reader, and it never felt like she was over describing things or like explaining how each character was, like how she was thinking and every little thing. Like she just kind of wrote how she felt, and the reader caught on really well. So love that. Lots of different emotions in this book. Lots of like, I would say it gets more heavier as the book keeps going on, but definitely didn't feel overbearing with different traumas and different struggles. Like it just felt very realistic, and it felt like the progression from struggles of a college student to like her adult life, it felt very realistic. So I love that. I feel like for me, this book could have been like a perfect book for me, and it felt very 5-star coded. But there were times when I just didn't feel as connected, and maybe it's just because I couldn't relate to some of the things that were happening in the book. It just emotionally, it didn't connect as much. Like it didn't hit hard for me. Obviously, like a lot of the stuff was emotional, and the things that happen in the book are emotional, but I think for me, like I said, I don't really get emotional with books unless like I really feel something and I feel invested. So yeah, I think for me, it just didn't have that 5-star feeling just because it didn't like, I didn't connect as much, which was unfortunate. Yeah, there was very like specific things that happened that I felt like you need to go through those things to understand. Like, I don't want to give too much away, but like someone ends up getting very sick at the end, and like you see the struggles of like having to deal with someone who's internally ill and terminally ill and things like that. So yeah, I liked that the story didn't necessarily have like a happy ending, like a fairy tale ending. It felt, again, very real life. It felt like, yeah, like this feels hopeful, but not everything in life happens to what we want it to happen. And I liked that it was kind of more, what's the word for that? Like very just like normal. It didn't feel like, oh, everything happened and everything was great and everything turned out great for her and she ended up doing this and that. Like, no, like there was bad and good, and then it just kind of ends with like her being somewhat at peace, which was nice. I felt like in this story, I feel like it examines a lot of different relationships with people and individuals and different personalities, and I love that because it felt very much like each person was their own person, and this is her story and her experience dealing with a different person with a different personality. And it's like dealing with someone who's emotionally unavailable, someone who's has communication issues or this and that. Like it just felt very interesting, and it felt very like, oh, like this is a story about someone who has to deal with different people and different dynamics, and even not like romantically, even just like with friends and teachers and neighbors and things like that. And I did love that as well. Overall, I'm really glad I read this. It was a very well written book. I ended up giving this a 4-star. Yeah, I love that you could take away something from the story, even if you can't connect with it emotionally at sometimes. I feel like there are life lessons in this that you can relate to a little bit. So yeah, and I feel like the main thing that I took away from this was to appreciate your time with people that you love and to not let someone hold you back from life. And life and happiness continues even when you're released from certain relationships with people. I think a lot of the times we think that like, oh, I meet someone and I have great times with them, but once I let go from them, or maybe they're not in my life anymore, I don't deserve that happiness anymore. And I feel like as people, we need to learn how to accept that that was a good time in your life, but then also realize that you deserve happiness after them and after that. And you deserve to live your life and not be held back by people because they maybe don't have it figured out. And I really love that message. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. And I'm also considering reading the book before this because it's about these same people, but in a different storyline, I think. I don't know. But I heard that one's just as good as Heart the Lover. So I'm definitely invested in that. So yeah, 4 stars for Heart the Lover. I really wish I could have given this a 5-star. Like I was itching to give it the 5-star. But then the ending just kind of like, it didn't fall flat for me. Just again, like it was so hard to emotionally connect to it. And I think when I finished the book, I didn't have that 5-star feeling, which I really wish I did. But anyway, highly would recommend it. It was a very good book. And it's very short. It's like 200 pages-ish. So it's a really quick read. Something like maybe like a vacation book or just something like maybe you want to get yourself out of a slump. Really well paced. So yeah, Heart the Lover. Alrighty, so after Heart the Lover, I was like, you know what? I have one more book in the Edge of Darkness series. Let's just finish it and read the trilogy. So I ended up picking up Restitution, and whoa, this one was intense. This one was definitely the most violent, the most gore. There was a lot going on in this. If you don't like a very gory, violent book, maybe don't pick this one up. But I'm just as a warning, like this one was intense. Lots of good moments from Tobias and the whole family's dynamic. I love that we got to see more of him and his dynamic with Kate and Stacy, and also her dynamic with like the rest of the family and her family. So we definitely get more of that. Lots of great lines from the men in this book, especially when Cade gets his revenge on Chris. Yeah, I felt like there was such good dialogue in this and such great lines in this, especially from Cade and Tobias. And he's very much like, "Don't touch my girl. Like, you even look in her direction, you're toast." And I love that. The whole scene with Chris and Cade getting his revenge on him. Oh my God! Like I just expressed before, I don't like Chris at all. His character was literally the worst, and that whole scene just like, I was like, I hate the violence in this, but I loved that. That was the only accepting thing I had of this. Cade was really getting me in this book. His story was so sad. We get a lot of Cade and his story and his emotion and how he's dealing with the trauma that he went through with being under, I don't even remember her name, but like being under her influence and all that. It was just so sad. And it like hurt my heart. I love Cade. Cade is a sweetheart. There are parts in this that gets a little repetitive. I feel like a lot of things are explained again, like especially like with the trauma and the things that the characters go through from the first 2 books. I feel like they're just brought up again in the third and explained again, which I'm sure she does that to like make sure you remember things, but I think it just comes off a little repetitive. It's like over explaining the same trauma that we've already understood from the first 2 books. So I don't know if that's really necessary. I love how Cade and Stacy were very patient with each other in this book. I feel like because there was so much miscommunication and there was so much trauma, especially from Cade, I feel like they were really patient with each other. They really took the time to give each other space, and you can tell how much they loved each other from how much they were willing to wait it out and sacrifice a lot of time and energy into recovery and healing, especially like towards the later parts of the book where it's like she was pretty much just waiting for him kind of vibe. I love that, and I think it made their relationship seem like, oh, like they actually do love each other even from childhood, and it's not just physical attraction. I think one thing got me was the ending felt a little rushed for me, and I feel like everything was just summed up really quickly, so it was like kind of weird pacing from the rest of the book. Like I feel like the first like 80% of the book was pretty well paced and like a little bit slower if I'm going to be honest. And then it just picks up at the end and it kind of ends. And then you have like a couple epilogue chapters. So that was kind of off for me. Definitely one of the better dark romances I've read for sure. I can see why people really love this trilogy. This trilogy is like a staple in the dark romance world. I feel like if you are a dark romance girly, you have read this. So yeah, there's just so much connection between the main characters and you really feel their love, especially by the third book. I think my thing is I'd 100% check trigger warnings because wow, like the first book was like, okay, there's trigger warnings, but by the second and third, it gets intense. Like it even made me feel very uncomfortable most of the time. So yeah, definitely consider doing that and doing your research on that. So I ended up giving Restitution a 4-star. So yeah, I really, really loved it. I think I had a really great time with the trilogy as a whole. I think there were just some parts that were like a little much for me and like maybe some plot points that kind of felt unnecessary. But I think if you're invested in the main two characters and maybe like his parents and maybe things like that, I think it was really well done. So, yeah, I'm really glad I read it because again, it's a staple and I was due to read this for sure. So yeah, that was Restitution. Alrighty, so after I finished that trilogy and I read Restitution, I ended up getting How to Kill a Guy in 10 Dates on my Libby, and this is a book that I have been waiting for. This book was on hold on my Libby for at least like 8 weeks. I have been waiting, or like 12 weeks. I've been waiting so long to get my hands on this book because it's a new release, but I guess just people really wanted to read it. So when I saw that I got the loan for it, I was like, yes, I have to read it because I can't wait any longer. So the next book is How to Kill a Guy in 10 Dates. And it's pretty much about, this premise is pretty good. I loved this plot a lot. So it's pretty much a female main character and her friend. They decide to go on this speed dating event. And they go to the speed dating event and there's like a bunch of other people there, like maybe 20 other people there. And she's going through the dates, whatever. And then all of a sudden the lights go out and her date gets murdered. And they have to figure out how to get out of there and who's the killer and why the killer is doing this. And the main female character, she has a background with, she loves horror movies and she loves watching them. And so she has like a background of like how to survive a killer and how to survive a scene like this. Why am I not remembering what her occupation has something to do with that, like criminology or something like that. And so, yeah, and then she ends up like teaming up with this group of people from the speed dating thing. And then one of the guys that is there, she ends up falling in love with through this process of trying to survive. And there's a lot of plot twists and a lot of like twists and turns and like who did it, who didn't do it, like what's the vibe. And so, yeah, that's the story. I love the mix of romance with the murder mystery. I feel like I have never read a book like this, and if I have, maybe I just don't remember, but I feel like it was such a good, like, you're in the murder mystery, you're in it, you're like, oh, the tension is so high, there's high stakes of, like, survival and things like that, and then you're trying to figure out, like, who done it, and what the vibe is, who can you trust, and who's lying, and all that, and then there's also this romance element where they're slowly falling in love and getting to know each other through survival. I think that's such a smart premise, because it's like, how else are you going to know someone more than when you're trying to survive, you know? So I love that. I love that the female main character and the main male character, they like slowly develop their feelings throughout the story. It's not insta-lovey at all. They're trying to survive and they learn how to like each other and they fall in love with each other through that. And I thought that was really well done. Obviously there's some parts that were unrealistic because like what are the chances that this happens? But also I think there was like a moment where they hook up during this process. So I think like the progression was great, but then like they randomly have a hookup in the closet while they're trying to run from the killer. And it's like, I don't know if I love that. So there was that. But yeah, I feel like everything else was well paced, which was good. I think there were some parts that were predictable for sure. Like who ends up being the murderer and, yeah, there were just things that like little things that happened that I think like you catch on to like, oh, like it's definitely this person. But then there were other parts that kind of threw me off a little bit and they were like, oh, like I wasn't expecting that. Like there's like sometimes you can tell the direction of where the author's going, but then there was parts in this where I was like, oh, like I didn't think that was gonna happen. So yeah, there was like real twists to like what was going on in the book, like how many murderers there are, and yeah, there was like hints of like things that they were saying and doing in the beginning of the book that come up later and that kind of like tie in together that I thought was really well done. So there was that. I think this was a very fun story. And I loved that there was like a lot of references to other movies. So like throughout the book, like every chapter was kind of a play on words of other horror movies or other romance books, or other romance movies. And you get a lot of references to other movies, other books, other things. So if you're like a very horror movie person or murder mystery person, there are a lot of references to other like classic book. I keep saying books, movies and shows in this book. So if you're into that, that's that. I think for me, there were times where the female main character came off a little annoying and like she was trying to come off quirky and cute, reference things from like today's culture and like bring up things in her everyday talk, which is like, it just didn't make sense. Like, again, this thing where the author tries to make the female main character seem quirky and cute and like very modern and contemporary, whatever, and like with the times. And it's just like, it comes off very like, no one talks like that. No one, like, it was just the niche references for me, just like kind of took me out of it. And I just felt like it was very unnecessary. And she just came off very annoying. Like, ugh, like I wish I could remember like something, but, yeah, it just takes you out of the world and it's like, why are you bringing this up right now? Like, why? Like, I love the references to the movies and like the horror movies and the romance movies and stuff, but then she would just bring up like these random, like, I don't know. I just didn't love it. So, again, that's another thing that I hate in books. It's like when they try to make the female main character seem like down with the times and it's like, she's not. Like, it's doing too much. Like, we need to tone down the lingo. We need to tone down the pop culture references, okay? Some parts I did skim through, not gonna lie, but overall the book was a good time. Like, I think there was just some parts where it's like, okay, like we get it. Like, they're like, what, especially the parts where it was like fleshed out when they're like walking to another room and they're not sure if it's safe and what is this? Like, okay, like we get it kind of thing. The only thing is I wish we understood the motives more for the murderer, because this murderer ends up being like a serial murderer. Like, this person ends up being a serial murderer, so they've done this before. And I feel like I wish we got more out of that and we understood more of why they were doing this. Like, the person was very instantly infatuated with the female main character, and then that was the motive. But then it's like, I wanted to understand more of the psychology of it and like why this person was doing this. Like, did they feel like they couldn't get like, I don't know. I was like lost of why they decided to do this because it was very out of their norm kind of vibe. So yeah, I wish we just got more out of why the murderer was doing this. But overall, I found the premise really unique. And I could see why it took me forever to get this book in Libby because obviously it's very well done. So yeah. So I ended up giving this a 4-star and I really, really liked it. And I think if you're into murder mystery with romance, I think you would really like this because I love those genres and I thought it was just such a unique premise and it was so well done. But yeah, I think there was just some parts of it that kind of dumbed it down for me from like a 5 to a 4, but 4 is really good still. So if you can get your hands on it, I'd highly recommend it. And yeah, that was How to Kill a Guy in 10 Dates. Guys, I didn't even realize that was the last book. I thought I read more, but yeah, How to Kill a Guy in 10 Dates was my last book for April. And yeah, crazy. So yeah, I definitely had like better books, some not so great books. I think starting off with a DNF is always never a good sign, and I feel like sometimes it brings down the morale, but I ended up having a pretty good month, and there was definitely some books in here that I really enjoyed. So yeah, those were the books I read. Let me know if you've read any of them or if there's any that maybe you want to read now after I've talked about them. I hope, like, sometimes I'm like, did I explain this properly? Because I always forget to explain the plots of the books and what the books are about before I start talking about what I loved. Because I'm assuming that you've either heard of the book or you've read it already. But you could also just like look up what the plot is if I didn't explain it well. But yeah, so I'm really excited. obviously am already in the process of reading my May books. I'm already excited to talk about them because we have some really, really great ones to talk about for May already. So yeah, stay tuned for that. But I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.